gonna backtrack. And you should've kept my name out your mouth. Ask me though how it all turned out. When you try to use my name for a clout, keep on going, give you something you can talk about.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing this fine Tuesday, September 30th? I'm getting here a little bit later than usual today because, oh my gosh, I've been working so hard on this BJ Investigates. Like, I have like basically 3 scripts in the works. Anyway, so I was doing all that, and yeah, I guess some things happened. I wanted to come through here today and do some updates on the David situation, but before I do that, I think I decided I'm going to do that tomorrow. Instead, today I'm going to go through um the sentencing memo from the feds. Okay, so Diddy basically wants like to spend like one more month in prison and then just walk free. He has advanced a whole bunch of legal arguments. I did make a video on it. He also wanted to do a get some clothes, some non-prison clothes, and he was like, too late. Teeny Garagos had filed it. Teeny Garagos, on that behalf of Diddy, had filed to get these non-prison clothes, 2 different outfits, to the MDC where Diddy's being detained currently. Now, she did it too late to get it for the first outfit, which was for the oral arguments for the acquittal, the motion for an acquittal, motion for and the alternative a new trial, which interestingly the judge still has not decided on. The judge has still not made a ruling on the acquittal or the new trial thing. Now, I mean, I think he's going to deny it, but just, some people were thinking he was going to walk out the courtroom that day free, and like the judge hasn't even made his decision yet. But anyway, okay, so Diddy basically wants to walk out the courtroom at any moment, out of the jail at any moment. The judge has granted him the clothes. I made a little short about that. You might have seen it. He's allowed to wear non-prison clothes to his sentencing hearing. Now, the sentencing hearing is coming up this Friday, October 3rd, and it's going to be at the same courthouse as everything else was. And we're going to finally see how long, Diddy's going to be sentenced in jail. Now, a lot of people are asking, is he going to get time served? Is he going to get time served? That has already been decided. He, yes, will get time served insofar as what the meaning of that is, where Diddy has already been in jail. He's already been sitting there in jail, awaiting trial and awaiting sentencing. So all of the time that he's been sitting in the jail, that's going to count toward his sentence. But that doesn't mean time served, period. Like, there's like different colloquialisms, right? Like if somebody says he's just going to get time served, he's going to get time served for sure, no matter what. Like that's already been decided. But is he going to get any additional time beyond the time served is, the next question. I think absolutely. Now the feds, they're going for, as you saw in the title, thumbnail and all that, 11.25 years. That's what they want. So I wanted to bring up the document because not only do the feds not, I cannot do two things at once. Not only do the feds give this sentencing recommendation of 11.25 years, not only do they provide their arguments, but they also provide statements from alleged victims and support. Now, the reason I'm saying alleged is because I have not read the statements yet. I don't know who gave the statement, so I don't know if it was statutory victims under this or not. So see, because like last week or whatever, Diddy had filed his sentencing memorandum. He had filed wanting to get certain amount of time. Like I said, basically he wanted like one more month or whatever. And then he wanted to be out by his birthday. Well, the feds have now filed their response. They're like, no, absolutely not. He needs to be in there for years. And this is why. And just like Diddy was allowed to attach these statements from, his mom and his friends and his former coworkers, et cetera, the feds are also attaching statements as well. And I understand Cassie wrote one of them. I think maybe a former chef of Diddy's wrote one. And I don't know who else wrote these letters. I don't even know for sure if they did. So we'll get into those together. But there is this document. So let me pull that up. Oh no, I'm in the wrong folder. Hold on. Okay. I cannot get my camera the right spot yet. Okay. The max he could get is 20 years, but like that's really not even conceivable. It's kind of like theoretical. It's like the theoretical max. Okay. So yeah, no, James, no mention of any kids because that wasn't in the indictment. That wasn't part of the trial. So I wouldn't expect that to be mentioned. Okay. So here's the document. This is docket number 516. It was filed yesterday, I think, or today. No, I think it hit the docket today. Okay, so as you can see, the title is The Government's Sentencing Memorandum. Missing from here is Maureen Comey. Oopsie. Introduction. Throughout this case and over the course of a 7-week trial, this court has seen extensive evidence demonstrating Diddy's criminal conduct perpetrated across more than a decade. At trial, Diddy disputed that the government had made out particular elements of particular offenses, but he largely conceded his conduct. The violence, domestic abuse, drug use and distribution, and bribery. The defendant will not be punished for any crimes of which he was acquitted, of course. So they're saying, we're not trying to get him punished and serving jail time for something he got acquitted of. No, he got acquitted of force, fraud, coercion, whatever underlying the S trafficking because he didn't get convicted of that. So we're not looking for him to be punished for that. But he did get found guilty of 2 things. And punishment for those crimes must take into account the manner in which Diddy committed them. These crimes, the 2 that he was convicted of, are serious and have warranted sentences over 10 years already in multiple other cases for defendants who, like Diddy, engaged in violence and put others in fear. Consistent with those cases and based on the corroborated evidence presented at trial, the court should impose a sentence of no less than 135 months imprisonment. So that would be like 10 more years of what he's already going to be, time served for. A substantial term of imprisonment is also needed in this case because the defendant is unrepentant. He's not sorry. Incredibly, while he conceded his acts of violence and abuse throughout the trial, he now is trying to argue that his victims should shoulder the blame. The defendant tries to recast decades of abuse as simply the function of mutually toxic relationships, but there is nothing mutual about a relationship where one person holds all the power and the other ends up bloodied and bruised. Whoo, girl, they spitting. They're like, Diddy tries to recast decades of abuse as just the function of it was just a mutually toxic relationship. Chill out. The feds are like, no, there's nothing mutual about a relationship where one person holds all the power and the other person ends up bloodied and bruised. That's not mutual. I would have to agree. Okay. Indeed, in connection with the sentencing, Cassie, who, along with multiple entertainers, was transported across state lines by Diddy for multiple day freak-offs in connection with count 3 of the indictment for which Diddy was convicted. Cassie writes to the court that freak-offs were degrading, disgusting, and left her with infections, illness, and exhaustion. Cassie became addicted to the substances that Diddy provided her. She still has nightmares about the abuse. And this is physical abuse that Diddy conceded. Like, this is basically the same as saying, like, Diddy admitted this, Your Honor. Like, this isn't up for debate. He literally just admitted that he was abusive. So can we cut the crap? It lasted more than a decade. It left her with permanent scars all over her body. Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs' abuse drove Cassie to have certain type of thoughts and ideations, which she almost followed through upon. And she testified this at trial. She asks that the court impose a sentence that considers the many lives that Diddy upended with his abuse and control. The court also heard testimony and reviewed contemporaneous communications from Jane, the other victim, who, along with entertainers, was transported across state lines for hotel nights in connection with count 5, of which Diddy was convicted. Jane's testimony and communications detail how she was manipulated and beaten by Diddy. So she didn't write a letter. The evidence included a note that she wrote to herself about how she felt violated and was tormented by how the defendant had placed and paid all of these harmful men on her and risked her health every single time for 2.5 years. Defendants who perpetrate violations of the Mann Act involving such violence and fear regularly face significant penalties, the feds say. The defendant should be no exception, so Diddy's not an exception. There's nothing out of the ordinary to give him a sentence. Particularly when Diddy's history and characteristics demonstrate years of abuse and violence. Several former employees abused and exploited by Diddy, including one who he sexually assaulted, submitted letters to the court in connection with sentencing. These letters uniformly ask that the court impose a sentence that reflects the severity of Diddy's conduct and his history and pattern of violence. Given the seriousness and duration of his conduct, as well as his decades of unchecked violence, consideration of these relevant factors under the law weighs heavily in favor of a substantial sentence, as well as the statutory maximum fine. So also he needs to pay up. Cha-ching. The sentence imposed on Diddy should reflect the substantial psychological, emotional, and physical damage that he has inflicted. Most significantly, the nature and seriousness of the offense, the need to deter and promote respect for the law, and the history of and characteristics of the defendant warrant a sentence of no less than 135 months imprisonment. That's 11.25 years. Such a sentence is consistent with similarly situated defendants who committed Mann Act violations and is warranted here. So then they get into the procedural background. I'm just going to skim a little. Let's see. Began investigating him back in November 2023 after Cassie filed her lawsuit. September last year, he was indicted by a grand jury. Earlier this spring, in April, the grand jury voted on a superseding indictment. He tried to get bail several times. He was arraigned September. This was Judge Tarnowski at the time. After extended argument, the judge detained Diddy, did not let him out on bail, said that his crimes happened behind closed doors, alleged crimes at the time, which makes it impossible to monitor him. The court further found that detention was warranted based on the defendant's history and characteristics, observing that given the allegations of violence and substance abuse, quote, I think you can trust yourself. So you're not trustworthy, in other words. Diddy appealed the decision to another judge, Judge Carter, to whom the case was then assigned, and a bail hearing before the judge proceeded on September 18th. After a lengthy argument, the judge also denied bail, finding Diddy was a danger regarding obstruction of justice and witness tampering, and that Diddy posed a danger to the safety of others in the community. Diddy's detention and bail renewed. In November, he tried to renew the motion for bail. The government cited excerpts from certain of the defendant's notes that had been photographed during a sweep of the MDC. Remember his notebook? The defendant's allegations that the government was in possession of attorney-client privilege material. The defendant caused his attorney to present the court with a notebook marked legal to falsely, erroneously suggest that the government had knowingly obtained notes from Diddy that had clearly been marked legal. These actions form, in part, the basis of the government's request for the obstruction enhancement. Your Honor, some of the reason that we're asking for you to give an enhanced sentence is because of this dishonest behavior. Diddy handed a notebook over to his lawyers and was like, oh yeah, this notebook said legal in it. It did not. It was written on there afterward. When was Diddy apprehended by the FBI? I believe it was in March. No, it was September. September 2024. Okay, by order dated November 2024, the court also again denied, a different court, different judge, same like courtroom, denied Diddy's renewed motion for bail, citing his propensity for violence, his serious risk of witness tampering, and the open question as to whether he could abide by conditions given his flagrant violation of the prison rules and the misrepresentation about the legal notebook made at that hearing in November. Okay, then they move on to the section about the trial. A 7-week trial happened and started in May this year, 2025. Notably, at the trial, Diddy did not meaningfully dispute the government's evidence of his brutal violence. The defense repeatedly conceded through his lawyers that he was horrifically abusive, along with other criminal activities such as substance use and distribution. As described below, the trial evidence included the testimony of Cassie, testimony of Jane, testimony of multiple other individuals, including employees responsible for setting up the freak-offs, expert witness testimony. There was texts, emails, phone records, photos, videos, audio recordings, other records, physical evidence, including substances, firearms, pew-pews. July 2nd, 2025, the jury convicted Diddy of counts 3 and 5, concluding that he transported individuals, including Cassie and Jane and male S workers, in interstate and foreign commerce with the intent that they engage in a certain type of work or act. You can read it on the screen. I'm trying to follow the YouTube rules here. The jury acquitted Diddy of counts 1, 2, and 4, the RICO conspiracy and the S. Ficking counts. A summary of the trial evidence is below. Offense conduct beginning approximately 2009. He starts his relationship, these hotel nights, these freak-offs. His relationship with Cassie, they go into how much control he had over her. She was 21 years old, and he was 38 when they met. He signed her to a 10-album deal with Bad Boy. She described at the time she was really super young, naive, total people pleaser. This was on purpose, the government is saying. She was targeted. We also heard about Capricorn Clark from her, rather, and about her. Diddy had paid for Cassie's apartments in New York and LA, frequently came over unannounced, let himself in. He often had violent fits of rage, kicked down doors at the apartment. Door is broken. Had the keys. He was violent, allegedly. And, and on those videos, it looked like he was violent, looked like it to me. This is something he conceded at trial, they're saying. He said it at trial. He agreed. At trial, he conceded the overwhelming evidence of his violence against Cassie and admitted that he engaged in abuse that was horrible, dehumanizing, and indefensible. There was a name in criminal law for the violence we will hear about, and we will see at this trial, and it's called domestic violence. It's called assault. This is from his own attorney's mouth. We take full responsibility that there was domestic violence in this case. Jealousy led to domestic violence in the elevator bank. What Diddy did to Cassie on those videotapes is indefensible. It's horrible. It's dehumanizing. It's violent. It's evidence of domestic violence. Please understand that this video is overwhelming evidence of domestic violence. Again, describing in June 2024 an incident involving Jane as an incident of domestic violence. We own the domestic violence. We own the domestic violence. It happened, Diddy's lawyer said. If he was charged with domestic violence, we wouldn't all be here having a trial because he would have pled guilty because he did that. The domestic violence is the issue. God, the quotes go on and on. We're going to take the domestic violence. Let's take the domestic violence. Obviously, something happened. The video is very much domestic violence. Indeed, across the testimony of over 30 witnesses, the defendant's conceded abuse was detailed during the trial. Cassie testified about a January 2009 incident after a club appearance. The defendant called her a curse word after she spoke to a producer at the party. And then she drunkenly hit him. His whole demeanor just switched. I remember his eyes went black, and then after I punched him, and he attacked me, and I was basically like underneath the back seat in the Escalade just trying to cover my face. Cassie attempted to run away, but Roger Bonds, a member of the security staff, ran after her and brought her back to the house. The defendant kept Cassie at the London hotel for a week while her injuries healed, despite Cassie wanting to go home to her mother. Then there was the 2000 party at Prince's house where Mia saw Cassie getting beat up. December 2011, where there was a kicking incident, and there's pictures. August 2013, Deontay Nash. I didn't know there was going to be these pictures. My God. Hold on. Let me just get past all the graphic images. Okay. September 2018, an S assault. Cassie also testified to seeing Diddy with and around pews. Sometimes that he made Cassie touch him. He also forced these freak-offs to happen. She was dissociated and numbing. There was violence during the freak-offs. Threats to humiliate Cassie, like AKA what they were trying to call blackmail. Humiliating, disgusting. I never wanted anyone to see me like that. It was just not okay for me. I felt like it was just tossed around. Like the idea, it was just tossed around like it was nothing, like objectifying me and putting me in these really compromising and gross positions with strangers. This is from the trial transcript. Diddy frequently brought up the videos of freak-offs involving Cassie when he was angry about something, using the videos to pressure her as blackmail material. She told Cassie that, Diddy told Cassie that he would release videos to embarrass her and put her career in jeopardy. Cassie was afraid that Diddy would release the videos, the fear for her own reputation, her family, and her career. And Diddy knew that. He told her that it could ruin everything she worked for. Make her look like a curse word. She would be ashamed. She just felt trapped. Then they talk about the relationship with Jane. This is the second thing that he was actually found guilty of. Jane, the early 2020 relationship. He would want to have the hotel nights. I guess he stopped calling them freak-offs. Christina Karam was involved. There was some financial control to the situation. He paid the rent. Are you going to let me in our house? He kind of held it over her head a little bit. Then there was a lawsuit after Cassie. On November 16th, Cassie filed a lawsuit against Diddy, alleging some of the conduct described. The defendant settled with her, paid her $20 million the next day, but publicly denied Cassie's allegations. Okay. Jane saw the suit and was overwhelmed by the harrowing resemblance to what she had been experiencing with Diddy. She sent the defendant text messages telling him how she felt. They broke up, but they ended up getting back together. In May 2024, surveillance video of Diddy beating Cassie during the Intercontinental Hotel freak-off in March 2016 was released online. Diddy publicly responded to the surveillance footage shortly thereafter by releasing a video on his Instagram account, committing to be a better man. Only 1 month later, in June 2024, Diddy viciously assaulted Jane and then forced her to take substances and perform acts on Antoine, the escort, or whoever it was. Specifically, on June 18th, 2024, Jane was at Jane's residence in LA, which had been set up for the night by one of the defendant's assistants, Jonathan Perez. The defendant, Diddy and Jane got into a verbal argument about another woman. Jane initiated a physical altercation. He did some physical stuff. He has used his vast resources to perpetrate this conduct. So they're just laying all these different little sections we're going through are different like things that the government is saying the judge should consider in deciding what to sentence Diddy to. So the judge has some guidelines. He has some sentencing guidelines of which he has to follow. He has to go, between pretty much time served up to, I think he can go up to 20 years, which I doubt he would do. I'm thinking Diddy will probably end up getting 4 to 6 years if I had to guess. I don't know why. I think that just different. I did use the Diddy docket calculator. The judge knows there's a lot of eyes on the case. I hope he makes an example of Diddy, Becky said. The feds are making their case for sentencing. Right. They're making their case for sentencing. So the judge has the discretion within a certain amount of time to look at everything that he saw at trial, take into consideration certain things about what he saw at trial, what evidence remember, he's privy to a whole lot of evidence that we never heard about and we never saw. He's privy to a lot of stuff we never heard about and never saw. But on the record, the judge does have to kind of say, based on the I think it's like the Criminal Justice Reform Act or something, that what he's taken into consideration when he makes the sentencing, because you already know Diddy's going to appeal it. No matter if Diddy gets a few months in jail, he's going to appeal it. Okay, so she goes on to the next section, the feds do right here. Also, and on top of that, he abused others. This is just being read from the public document here. In addition to Diddy's abuse of Cassie and Jane, evidence at trial also established that Diddy, quote, physically, sexually, and emotionally abused many other individuals between the 10-year period. There was Mia, who he allegedly abused. Deontay Nash, who observed a lot of this. Brianna, Bongolan, Carrie Morgan, Jordan Atkinson. Also, what about Dawn Richard? There's Gina Huynh. They didn't even put Dawn Richard in here. Maybe it's because he didn't like physically abuse her. She just saw it. The defendant attacked Gina Huynh. He engaged in other misconduct. There was a supposed kidnapping, a break-in. Don't forget about the Kid Cudi car situation. There was the Boom Boom arson situation alleged. The fingerprints went missing for the break-in. Remember that? That's interesting. How did the LAPD lose those fingerprints? That's something I really want to know. Then there was a March 2016 bribery alleged. Substance use, distribution. All these things are things that the judge can take into consideration in deciding whether or not to let Diddy just walk free on Friday or not. The sentencing guidelines. Okay, so then the government is going to get into what the guidelines actually are. Okay, the government submits that the guidelines range is 240 months imprisonment. Range. Okay, so they're telling you the range. 240 months imprisonment. The statutory minimum based on a combined offense level of 42 and a criminal category of I. This calculation is based principally on the cross-reference in 2G 1.1 for offenses involving conduct described in these statutes, engaging in or causing another person to engage in an sexual act with another person by threatening or placing the victim in fear, other than by threatening or placing the victim in fear that any person will be subject to death, serious bodily injury, or kidnapping. Because the evidence presented at trial, including in support of offenses of conviction, so the evidence, they're saying, look, this isn't just stuff Diddy got acquitted of. This isn't just stuff that was only brought up in the RICO. No, we also brought up these violent acts, all this other stuff for the purpose of him being convicted on the transporting somebody for the purpose of whatever. We also used it for that too. So you can consider it in sentencing, Your Honor. Okay. Probation calculated the applicable guidelines range. Okay, so probation calculated the range as 70 to 87 months imprisonment. Okay, so what's 70 to 87 months? Let me look it up. I can't divide by 12 like that just in my mind. I know. What is 70 months? Okay, so the probation department recommended 5.8 years to 7.25. Okay. They put his level of offense level at a 27 and his criminal history category of I. So they agree on the criminal history category being I. But they put him at a 42. So the feds are saying he is a criminal offense level 42. And the probation department calculated their own calculation and said he's a criminal offense level of a 27. But they agree that he is a criminal history category of I. In reaching this calculation, probation declined to apply the threats or fear cross reference. As described in more detail below, the government submits that the law and the facts call for application of the threats of fear cross reference. However, even if the court follows the probation's recommendation and does not apply this cross reference, this special factor, 2 additional enhancements still apply beyond those. Applying these enhancements to the range as calculated in the PSR would result in a guidelines range of 108 to 135 months imprisonment. So the government has said, Your Honor, please, you cannot put him in for less than 11.25 years. But they want him in. Actually, what they're really asking is they think it's 240 months. So how long would that be? What they're really asking for is that, but it's kind of like they know they're not going to get. Oh, the guidelines allow for 20 years. Okay. Oh, duh, 24. Yeah, duh. Okay, I probably could have gotten that one. The 240 months imprisonment would be the whole full 20 years. So, now I want to go to. I'm not going to get into like the nitpicking of like why they disagree with the probation department and stuff, because this is like just really in the weeds. The point is that they're trying to they are trying to get over 10 years. They're trying to get 11.25 years, which I think would be 10 more years that he would be sitting in jail after the sentencing hearing. He's trying to get time served and walk out. So I want to get to the letters. That's kind of what I'm trying to get to here. Because we're going to find out on Friday the exact time. I mean, it's going to be something from 0 to probably 10 years. I mean, I would say, 11.25 is what they're asking. But then again, he's already done the 1 year and a little bit, about exactly a year right now. I'm just trying to get to the letters. Are they attached here? They better be. I'm going to be mad. Yeah. Okay. I think we have the letters. Okay. Exhibit A. Okay. So whose letter is this? This is Cassandra Ventura Fine. All right. So this is Cassie's letter that she has written. This just hit the docket today, September 30th, 2025, on the government's submission of their version of Diddy's sentencing memorandum. This is a document it's 189 pages long, and it's the government basically saying and laying out their arguments as to why they believe Diddy should be in jail for a substantial prison sentence, which they're going for more than 10 years. They're going for 11.25 years. So in support of their arguments as well, they have attached some evidence here in the form of statements from victims of Sean Diddy Combs. Okay, so we're going to read the first one now. This is a letter from Cassie to the judge. Dear Judge, I have been in a cycle of thought and then overthought writing this letter to you. If there is one thing I have learned from this experience, it is that victims and survivors will never be safe. Wow. Although I can hope for justice and accountability, I have come to not trust anything. I hope that your decision considers the truths at hand that the jury failed to see. Wow. Well put. For 4 days in May, while 9 months pregnant with my son, I testified in front of a packed courtroom about the most traumatic and horrifying chapter of my life. I testified that from age 19, Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs used violence, threats, substances, and control over my career to trap me in over a decade of abuse. He groomed me into performing repeated S acts with hired male S workers during multi-day freak-offs, which occurred nearly weekly. I was forced, she says, into lingerie and heels, told exactly how to look. I was plied with substances and alcohol so that he could control me like a puppet. These events were degrading and disgusting, leaving me with infections, illnesses, and days of physical and emotional exhaustion before he demanded it all again. These acts became my full-time job, used as the only way to stay in his good graces. I testified that I learned to read his signals, knowing that when he spoke of freak off, he was demanding them, that refusing meant punishment, losing my car, losing my phone, or worse. He controlled every part of my livelihood and threatened to destroy my reputation by leaking S tapes, a threat he repeated often. His power over me eroded my independence and sense of self until I felt I had no choice but to submit. Wow. Eroded my independence, eroded my sense of self until I felt I had no choice but to submit. When he believed I had wronged him or was not sufficiently responsive, he also threatened people around me and those close to me, including my family. I regularly worried that displeasing him meant putting my family and my friends' safety at risk. I testified about how, beyond these threats, Diddy frequently used violence to get his way. Over the nearly 11 years we were together, Sean Combs would hit me, punch me, stomp on my face, pull my hair, throw my body to the ground and against the wall. The jury saw pictures of bruises on my back from Diddy kicking me and saw the deep gash over my eye that he caused when he slammed me into a bed frame. The entire courtroom watched actual footage of Combs kicking and beating me as I tried to run away from a freak-off in 2016. People watched this footage dozens of times, seeing my body thrown to the ground, my hands over my head, curled into a fetal position to shield me from the worst blows. This physical violence caused bruises that makeup artists, paid for by Sean Combs, would cover up, as well as permanent scars all over my body. Scars that will never heal. Scars that will never go away if they are permanent, right? She goes on, during my time with Combs, I was in a constant state of hypervigilance, as I was always anticipating demands for S acts or otherwise fearing retribution for any perceived slight. My descent into substance abuse was directly correlated with his increased control over my body, my money, my freedom, and my free will. I used those substances to push through the horrifying S acts he demanded and to numb myself to the physical pain and emotional turmoil I was constantly in. While the defense attorneys at trial suggested that my time with Diddy was akin to a great modern love story, that's a quote, by the way, nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing about this story is great, modern, or loving. This was a horrific decade of my life, stained by abuse, violence, forced S, and degradation. I spent the last 7 years of my own life slowly rebuilding myself, physically getting clean from the substance abuse that Diddy had forced and encouraged, and mentally understanding how to live with a seemingly insurmountable level of trauma. The horrors I endured drove me to have thoughts of no longer being living, ones I almost followed through on if not for my family's intervention and urging that I seek professional care. I have been to rehab and I have taken part in dozens of types of therapy modalities to confront, compartmentalize, and to cope with the horrific memories of sexual and emotional abuse that I endured for nearly 10 years. She goes on. While what he did to me is always present, I am slowly learning how to live my life free of the fear and horrors I endured. And in doing so, I'm fully devoted to my husband and children. I still have nightmares and flashbacks on a regular, everyday basis and continue to require psychological care to cope with my past. My worries that Diddy or his associates will come after me and my family is my reality. So her reality is always thinking that they're going to come after her. I have in fact moved my family out of the New York area and I'm keeping as private as as private and quiet as possible, because I am so scared that if he walks free, his first action will be swift retribution toward me and others who spoke up about his abuse at trial. As much progress as I have made in recovering from his abuse, I remain very much afraid of what he's capable of and the malice he undoubtedly harbors toward me for having the bravery to tell the truth. His defense attorneys claim he is a changed man and he wants to mentor abusers. I know firsthand what real mentorship means, and this disgusts me, Cassie says. He is not being truthful. I know that who he was to me, the manipulator, the aggressor, the abuser, the trafficker. She's calling him a trafficker. Now, just, for purposes of my YouTube video, my own liability and things here, he was found to be not guilty on this. However, she can put whatever she wants in her letter. And this is clearly how she feels about it. It seems to be. I know that who he was to me, the manipulator, the aggressor, the abuser, the trafficker, is who he is as a human, if he's a human, y'all. I mean, she's giving him more credit than I would. Anyway, he has no interest in changing or becoming better. He will always be the same cruel, power-hungry, manipulative man that he is. When I came out with my allegations in my civil case, he flatly denied them again and again. It was only after actual video footage corroborated the exact words in my civil complaint that he issued an insincere apology on the internet. Thanks to the footage and my testimony, this is also something he will forever be associated with. For over a decade, Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs made me feel powerless and unimportant, but my experience was real, horrific, and deserves to be considered. While the jury did not seem to understand or believe that I engaged in freak-offs because of the force and coercion the defendant used against me, I know that it is still the truth. And his sentence should reflect the reality of the evidence and my lived experience as his victim. Reliving in detail the events and truths described throughout the trial and this letter causes me tremendous emotional pain. I am trying with all that I am to move on. I hope that your sentencing decision reflects the strength it took for victims of Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs to come forward. I hope that your decision considers the many lives that Sean Combs has upended with his abuse and control. I thank you for your time and attention. Cassandra Ventura Fine. We got another letter. Regina and Roderick Ventura, this is Cassie's mom and dad's letter. Dear Judge, we're writing you as extremely concerned parents regarding the upcoming sentencing. I could cry on this one. Because all the stuff I've been reading lately, it all just kind of is like, it's all kind of connected in a weird way, webbing. We have read many online reports that state that months are being suggested for his punishment or sentence as opposed to the many years that we feel he deserves. 11 years is the length of time this horrific nightmare lasted. During that time, our daughter was beaten repeatedly and exposed to harmful and copious amounts of substances. She was held like a prisoner, kidnapped by the defendant when her face told the story of a beating. Yeah, that's true. She was held like a prisoner when her face told the story of a beating. That is a way to put it. She was coerced to perform sexual acts with strangers and workers for Diddy's own sexual gratification. None of the sexual acts were consensual, as there is no consent in a domestic violence relationship. There was always the threat of violence. Everything she did with, for, and because of this defendant was self-preservation. She was in actual fact brutalized by this man's power and depravity. Woo, girl. She was, in actual fact, brutalized by the defendant's power and depravity. Our daughter is dealing with the psychological, emotional, and physical aftermath of the abuse she endured at the hands of this defendant. She will be left to deal with the trauma of his abuse far beyond a 27-month sentence with time served, as suggested by the defense attorneys. We believe the charges that the defendant was convicted of are not only federal crimes, but they are also severe violations of human self-worth and freedom. Clearly a vile abuse of power, coupled with an immense disregard for human life. To sentence lightly in this case that involves such vicious abuses of our daughter's body, her safety, her dignity, is to dismiss her very existence. Whoo, my God. He's going to throw an extra year because of this letter alone. To sentence lightly would also send a dangerous message, and that's the truth. A sentence that is handed down in months instead of years sends a message that such a repulsive behavior can happen without meaningful consequence. It's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. In closing, we, her parents, urge you to deliver a sentence that appropriately reflects the severity and the depravity of the abuse, the breach of trust, and the suffering that our daughter experienced. The justice system must be a place where the voices of those who have endured sexual and physical abuse are heard, believed, and honored with appropriate accountability. Thank you for your time and consideration. We got another one. This one's from Mia. She testified at trial. Your Honor, I'm writing to you on behalf of my younger self, the little girl who once dreamed without fear. Dang, this is sad. I'm going to cry. The little girl who once dreamed without fear, who believed the world was full of possibility, who had faith in the goodness of people. And who trusted that her hard work, big heart, and integrity could carry her toward a bright and meaningful future. That little girl is gone. She was buried alive by an abuser, trapped in a world of terror, abuse, humiliation, and coercive control. This letter has been excruciating to write. Other than during my testimony, I've never had the courage to discuss my abuse publicly. It feels impossible to describe as I'm slowly just beginning to unravel the tangled web of trauma myself, but I decided that it's better to try to describe the permanent damage that Diddy, my abuser, has caused me rather than to remain silent any longer. I began working for my abuser in my early 20s after I moved to New York City with only a mattress on my car and a dream in my heart. I was made to believe it was the opportunity of a lifetime to work for him. I was young and naive. I wanted to make a name for myself. I wanted to change the world for the better through my creativity. My dream was to one day become a writer, a producer, and a performer. In these early years, I was hopeful and innocent. From the start, however, my abuser preyed on that innocence. Prayed like predator prayed, not prayed like to the Lord. And what I thought was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity gradually became a never-ending nightmare. I experienced manipulation, humiliation, coercion, and violence. I was groomed, exploited, and broken down. He stripped me of my freedom, my safety, my identity, my instincts, and my autonomy. He alternated rewards and punishments to break down my self-worth and instincts, creating dependency and confusion. He dangled my dreams before me like a carrot, promising me opportunity, mentorship, and advancement. He controlled every part of my life. I needed his permission for everything. When I could sleep, when I could eat, when I could use the bathroom, when I could go to my room, and even whether I could buy sanitary hygiene products. He created a life where nothing was mine, and I lived in constant fear because his moods could determine my right to exist. Asking for compensation for my labor, including like overtime requests or reimbursement requests, would lead to him throwing a tantrum, yelling, and sometimes throwing objects at me in an effort to humiliate me. He framed my requests as stealing and made me ashamed to expect any income at all. Through this financial manipulation, he kept me dependent and trapped. My work for the defendant was not a job. It was captivity. His coercive control and unpredictable violence left lasting psychological scars, anxiety, hypervigilance, dissociation, self-doubt, and an ongoing struggle to reclaim my autonomy. Years of abuse have rewired my brain. Even today, I feel trapped in the mental and emotional patterns that he created. I live with chronic and severe PTSD, depression, and crippling anxiety. I suffer deeply from intrusive thoughts, derealization, panic attacks, night terrors, and insomnia. When I can get a few precious hours of sleep, those hours are often filled with night terrors that wake me in a breathless sweat, screaming and crying. I awake with my heart pounding, gasping as if I am still trapped. I have struggled to feel safe in any workplace because of my PTSD, which has resulted in a fragmented professional record, a bankruptcy application, and crippling debt. I can't go to many of the public places I once loved: concerts, festivals, clubs, without risk of having a panic attack. I have struggled to set roots in any location and build a community for support, for fear my abuser would find me and ruin my life all over again. I avoid social media. I can't even listen to music I once loved. I can't watch many TV shows or movies, all for fear that I might unexpectedly be triggered and have to relive some of the worst moments of my entire life. All of this trauma was compounded by the impact of my testimony at my abuser's trial. The investigation and pre-trial process really threw me back into a world that I had spent years desperately trying to suppress. I had buried so many terrible memories of abuse, including violence and sexual assault, that I was forced to dig up and relive. I cannot overstate the traumatizing impact of reading his threatening emails, reviewing old photos and excuse me, reviewing old photos and videos and hearing his voice again. Every meeting felt like a hammer striking at the fragile foundations of my healing. The anticipation of testifying was also horrendous. I bet. My therapy sessions were spent bracing for the unfathomable moment that I would face him in your courtroom, Your Honor, instead of focusing on rebuilding my life and forging a new future. When I tried to imagine walking into a crowded courtroom and facing him, I would black out. For months, I suffered panic attacks. My tongue swelled. My stomach dropped. My hands would go cold. My legs became numb. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. The feeling of dread and terror was so intense, I couldn't hide it. I would randomly burst into uncontrollable, childlike sobs. I found myself self-isolating for fear of being a burden to the people I love. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to say I was not okay. I had been conditioned for so many years to believe that my needs were not important, and any emotion was forbidden. If I expressed any indication that I was suffering or unwell, I would be in imminent danger. I wanted to jump out of my skin. I felt relentlessly ashamed. There were times where I did not want to go on being alive. As a result of the defense team's tactics during my testimony, and despite my use of a pseudonym, my identity has been publicized. My name is no longer my own. It is forever linked to an abuser's violence. My sweet, loving parents had to read horrible details about the abuse of their daughter, riddling them too with anxiety and leading them to unfairly question themselves, as if they could have done anything to prevent this. Everyone I have known and everyone I will meet will now know my darkest moments. Even the children in my life, my sweet niece and nephew, my loving goddaughter and godson, my friends' children who inspired me to tell my truth, will one day read the vile details of my abuse. Although the verdict fell short of the justice I had hoped for, the defendant was still found guilty of serious crimes. What he stole from me cannot be returned. It cannot be reduced to years or money. He stole my freedom. He stole my sense of safety, my ability to trust myself and others, my confidence. He stole my dreams of having a stable, healthy family of my own, my career trajectory, and both my creative work product and creative aspirations. He stole 16 years of my life, time I should have been spending developing into the independent woman I was meant to be. My life has been profoundly broken. I am pleading on behalf of my inner child, the sweet, hopeful, bright-eyed girl who could not survive the defendant's abuse. And for the woman, yeah, she said she died. She could not survive the abuse. And for the woman I should have become, who was robbed of her future, I am pleading for the brave victims that came forward and the countless other victims who continue to suffer and who have been scared into silence. The defendant has shattered many lives. They too deserve justice. They too deserve to live without shame or fear. Victims of sexual, psychological, and violent crimes, especially against women, are often forced to prove themselves while reliving the very trauma that destroyed them. We are questioned, doubted, humiliated, re-victimized, as if surviving and coming forward to tell the story of the survival makes us a suspect. We're forced to serve a life sentence of living with the consequences of the defendant's abuse every day. Finally, I am pleading on behalf of future generations who deserve a world where predators cannot escape accountability. Your Honor, I ask that you do justice through the sentence that you impose on October 3rd, 2025. The defendant's wealth, power, and fame should not place him above the law. These forces have shielded him for too long. I ask you to deliver a sentence that reflects the full measure of harm that he actually caused, the years of coercion, financial abuse, humiliation, physical and sexual violence, and the profound trauma that he's inflicted as a result. I ask you to deliver a sentence that takes into account the ongoing danger my abuser poses to me and others. A sentence that honors the truth, the pain, and the lives that have been destroyed. A sentence that gives us hope, protection, and justice. Please help us believe that the legal system can offer justice to innocent and vulnerable victims, and that those with power, wealth, and influence cannot destroy lives without consequences. Please help us believe in a world where survivors are heard, believed, and protected. Please help us restore the belief that good can prevail. This is really gut-wrenching. Help us ensure that no one else suffers as we have. Help us believe that justice can and does exist by holding our abuser fully accountable. Please, Your Honor, you have the power to show us, the world, in the future, that our lives, our voices, our truth, and our humanity matter. Please help us. With gratitude and respect, Mia. Okay, so we have another letter. Who's this from? Capricorn Clark. She's written a letter. Let's read hers. This is Exhibit D. Dear Judge, I testified in your courtroom in this case, May 2025. As you heard, I worked for Puff from 2004 to 2012, and during that time, I got to know him very well. Since he fired me in 2012, he has had me blacklisted from the industry, and I've had to take multiple jobs to garner anything near my worth. Today, I'm a single mother and to a nonverbal autistic little boy living in Los Angeles. This ordeal has taken 14 years of my life. My career trajectory halted at 33 years old. What I lived through working for Puff, and in particular the events of December 2011, altered the course of my life and have haunted me for years. I feel that I paid with my life for the events that transpired that fateful day that we had to relive in federal court. I never wanted this. For many years, I couldn't tell my story. I lived in fear. Fear of Puff, fear of how I would feed my son. About a year and a half ago, Homeland Security Investigations case agents found me and asked me what happened. Those agents changed my life. And I would like to say that the Southern District of New York is the epitome of prestige and professionalism. I was handled with the ultimate care. But testifying publicly in front of Puff and his supporters was one, I'm glad she said that, because I was in the courtroom for one day. I went in there for one day, the day of sentencing, and I can tell y'all, they only let 11 or 14, depends on the day, people from the public in there. Everybody else in there is media, and then there was the jury. There's 2 rows of public, and it's the very back of the courtroom. You got to look over stuff. You can't see nothing. I mean, they're doing the court for the victims and the public. We can't see nothing. And, there's bloggers with 1,000 or 1,200 followers on YouTube that have preferential media seating for some reason. But, the people in the back and the public are back there. And when they would say not guilty on stuff, the whole 2 rows except me, the whole 2 rows of public would go, yes. So I just feel like, I wasn't in there, but I just feel like those people were obviously, and listen, they'll tell you themselves, they went every day. They went every day of the trial. So obviously those were the same ones that went every single day. That's the fans. That's the stands. And so I have no doubt in my mind that they were in there doing that same type of behavior throughout the trial, making little, giggles, making little, who knows, what they were doing and what these victims and witnesses were subjected to by those supporters in the courtroom. Now, not all of them were mean to me, but they all did seem to be in support of Diddy. Testifying publicly in front of him and his supporters was one of the hardest moments of my life. Every last word you heard from me was the truth, yet I felt, and to be honest, I still feel like I had to fight to prove in your courtroom that I am a victim, because the purpose of kidnapping me wasn't for trafficking. What was it for then? It was for something more serious, more sinister and grave. Violence and absolute power, unchecked in the ultra rich and famous. Wow. Tell them one time, Capricorn Clark. Wow. These are some powerful letters. Testifying publicly in front of Puff and his supporters was one of the hardest moments of my life. Every last word you heard from me was the truth. Yet I felt, and to be honest, I still feel, I got to fight to prove that I'm a victim, because the purpose of kidnapping me wasn't for trafficking. Well, then what was it for? What it was for was something far more serious, far more sinister, and far more grave. It was violence and absolute power, unchecked in the ultra rich and famous. It is insane to me that of all the things that people heard, 2 counts of institution of men is the only thing that remains on the table. It is insane, she said. I wanted to speak up. I wanted to tell the truth and do the right thing when I was asked to testify, but I am afraid that women and girls in America actually feel less protected than ever watching what just happened. The lesson seems to be that we should not speak up, not call law enforcement for help, and not say anything, but instead keep our head down and try to make a way, regardless what happens to us. I'm afraid this may be the only realistic way to proceed in the modern world. The last ray of light is that you provide justice for us. You have a chance to finally help him know that he cannot just do what he wants to people. There are repercussions and consequences. He cannot just destroy other people's lives. Karma. Judge Subramanian knows about karma. Will come back. Oh my God, I could cry because it is so true. Like the last ray of light, like it's Navratri. Oh my God. Like it was ray of light is you. Karma has to come back around. I would like to see Diddy serve additional time in a correctional institution. I truly believe that serving more time will save his life, as time away from his money, substances, and power is the only punishment he will recognize. I hope he has life on the other side of his time to make good on the changes he knows he has to make, to spend time with his family and get a chance to correct the damage he has so recklessly done to so many people who only meant well by him. Thank you, Your Honor, for your time, consideration, and for hearing us finally. God bless. There's another letter, Exhibit E. Who's this one from? Oh, girl, who is this? Deontay Nash. Oh my God, girl, Deontay just went in. Dear Judge, thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts. I write with great respect for the court and the difficult decisions it must weigh. Diddy's attempt to secure release before his scheduled sentencing hearing demonstrates a troubling lack of accountability and a continued pattern of manipulation. Right. So just coming out of the top, he's trying to escape. He was trying to get out of jail before the freaking sentencing hearing even. It shows he don't understand the severity of what he did. Troubling lack of accountability and a continued pattern of manipulation. The charges he was convicted of, including violations of the Mann Act, are not minor. They reflect serious, deeply disturbing conduct involving the coercion and transportation of individuals for illicit sexual activity. The thought that Diddy doesn't believe he deserves jail time is both disturbing and frightening. It underscores the depth of his lack of accountability and the danger he poses. Someone who refuses to acknowledge the harm they have caused, who believes they are above the law, demonstrates the same pattern of manipulation and abuse that has impacted so many lives. The fact that Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs believes that because he harmed people he claimed to love or called friends, somehow he deserves leniency is outrageous. That sense of entitlement makes his actions even more sickening. Yet, he continues to treat this process as negotiable, as though he's merely managing a legal inconvenience rather than confronting the consequences of federal crimes. Woo! Deontay is going in. He said he continues to treat this process like it's a negotiable. Like he's navigating a legal inconvenience rather than confronting the consequences of federal crimes. His efforts to preempt the court's process show not only a lack of respect for the justice system, but also a refusal to acknowledge the severity of his actions. At one point, there was public indication that Diddy intended to seek professional or mental health treatment. Whether that ever occurred remains unclear. But what is clear, however, is that there has been no visible movement toward accountability. Woohoo! Tell him. Rather than allow the legal process to proceed in a good faith way, he has focused on tactical maneuvers meant to bypass scrutiny and maintain control, soliciting letters of support, crafting PR statements, and attempting to manipulate public sentiment. His plan to escape accountability has been in motion from the very start. His violence has not been limited to private encounters, I will remind you, Your Honor. From orchestrated freak-offs to assaults on staff and strangers, his behavior has left a long trail of victims, many of whom still live in fear. Some of the worst abuse was inflicted on people he claimed to love. This is not the story of one or two isolated incidents. This is the story of hundreds, possibly thousands of people whose lives have been scarred by his unchecked power and brutality. Mr. Combs must also refrain from comparing his crimes to those of others. His conduct stands on its own, and it has set a new legal and cultural precedent. This is not about relative wrongdoing. It is about individual accountability for a decades-long pattern of abuse. There are many reasons why Diddy should serve an appropriate sentence. I feel like ChatGPT might have assisted on this page. There was psychological impact on victims. His release would re-traumatize survivors, many of whom remain in hiding for their safety. The court has a duty to uphold justice and protect those speaking out. Influence over potential co-conspirators. Release would allow him to coordinate with uncharged associates and retaliate or construct false narratives. No remorse or accountability. To date, Diddy has shown no genuine remorse. Only carefully crafted statements issued under legal pressure. This lack of accountability should weigh heavily against any request for release. And there's also the public safety concerns. The allegations include violent physical abuse, death threats, and intimidation. His release would endanger survivors and the public at large. Beyond legal concerns, I want the court to understand the very real, lived impact. Beyond legal concerns, I want the court to understand the very real, lived impact of Diddy's abuse. This man harassed everyone around us, including friends and business associates, so relentlessly that people no longer wanted to work with us or even spend time with us. We were ashamed to leave the house. The balcony he hung Bana from, a place that once offered peace, became a site of terror. The home he held me in against my will was my own. The keys and phone he stole were possessions I earned through years of hard work. He robbed me not only of my safety, but also my dignity. His reach was suffocating. He has caused lasting damage to the lives and careers of nearly everyone in his inner circle, past, present, and likely future. Some complied willingly. Many, many more felt coerced. He taunted victims through songs that contradicted the truth, creating false. That's interesting. He taunted victims through songs. Hmm. That contradicted the truth, creating false narratives that could never safely be challenged because of the fear he instilled. He pursued Cassie through her friends, despite both of us telling him she wanted no contact, and he tried to manipulate situations by offering favors if I helped deliver her to him. He has openly declared to his victims that he does not respect or care about the legal system, and if he does not respect the court should not extend him any leniency. Oop, got him. That was a good one. I do not just do this for myself, but for every mother, father, child, grandparent, sister, brother, boyfriend, husband, wife, friend, artist, intern, employee, and assistant who sacrificed for a man who only abused them in return. I have watched people take trains, move across the country, leave their families, and dedicate themselves fully, only to be mistreated, exploited, and silenced. Some of these same people have even left the entertainment industry entirely because of his actions. This issue is not only about violence, but also secrecy. Many of us were abused precisely because Diddy wanted us to hold his secrets to maintain his reputation. The truth is, Mr. Combs never respected those who worked closest with him. He rummaged through our lives while publicly pretending to suffer through hard times. He refuses to take responsibility privately or publicly. The abuse was deliberate, the control was relentless, and the damage is lasting. The same ailments that Diddy now claims as an excuse are the very same ones he has carried with him throughout his years of touring, conducting business, and abusing those around him. So don't pull it out now at the sentencing hearing, Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs. They never stopped him from being violent, abusive, or intoxicated when left to his own devices. They should not serve as an excuse now. True change cannot exist without acknowledging the harm one has caused. Claiming to have changed while continuing to defend the very behavior that led to incarceration is not accountability. This is avoidance. Diddy repeatedly shifts between denying responsibility, seeking sympathy, and reshaping the narrative to suit his immediate needs. But real transformation is consistent, honest, uncomfortable. It does not depend on who's watching or what your outcome is what your desired outcome is. Until he confronts his actions as wrong and takes full responsibility, any claim of change is hollow. I do not expect him to be in jail forever. But I am praying for a sentence that allows the victims to heal and encourages Diddy to genuinely change. For all of these reasons, I respectfully urge the court to deny his request for early release and to deny his 14-month suggestion. He has been fighting the truth for the past year, and this ongoing denial is causing additional harm to the mental well-being of the victims. I mean, period. That's also such a good point. He's been fighting the truth for the past year. He's just been gaslighting every victim, acting like he didn't do it. But he's like switching back and forth, back and forth. He did it. He didn't do it. He did do domestic violence. He didn't. He's been fighting the truth for the past year and his ongoing he's been fighting the truth for the past year and his ongoing denial is causing additional harm to the mental well-being of the victims. Survivors deserve safety. The public deserves protection, and justice demands accountability. These letters, hold on. Nothing further. 11.25 years just on that letter alone. I mean, my God. That sentence alone, what a powerful sentence. Survivors deserve safety. The public deserves protection. And justice demands accountability. Judge, this is not a good man. Thank you so much for your time, Judge. Your consideration means a great deal to me. All right, we have at least one more letter, Exhibit F. Maybe this is the chef, Chef Jordan. Yes, this is Chef Jordan. Chatwan, Jordan Chatwan Atkinson, and I was Diddy's personal chef from the summer of 2007 through the spring of 2010. During my time as that, I can say I was extremely overworked, underpaid, mentally abused, exploited, and at one point I was assaulted. Not only was I exploited by Diddy, I was also exploited by his HR executive staff. Throughout my time they would consistently manipulate me into silence and staying in my position. By saying they would get help to ensure I had days off, there was also a time in which they told me to spearhead the creation of Ciroc flavors. I was the one who chose, sampled, and tweaked the flavors throughout their inception, for which I was never compensated for. This was the most toxic and abusive workplace environment I have ever been in my entire career! Exclamation point. It has been extremely traumatizing to relive all of this. It was hard to live through the first time around in my mid-20s. Now, in my mid-40s, a lot of things I was too young and naive to understand, but the reality of all of it is cemented in my mind now. I've spent the last year and a half in a constant fight or flight state mode, and I'm currently trying to heal and repair all of the damage. There was also a time in which Sean Combs threatened my life to keep me silent about his abuse toward Cassie. I have a journal from this time that I never read until Cassie's case came out in November 2023, and it was like opening a Pandora's box, reading what my 20-year-old self endured. I was there to witness the start of Diddy and Cassie's relationship. This has been an extremely traumatizing time in my life the past year and a half. Having to unearth the past and relive it all again, I never forgot what I experienced during my time there, but I for sure buried it in order to survive. I spent the last 18 years building my career within the high-profile sector, and this case has destroyed the life I worked so hard to create. When you become personal staff to high-profile people, you become part of a secret society. One more time. When you become personal staff to high-profile people, you become part of a secret society. Discretion is the foundation. I didn't willingly participate in this case. What I recognize now, this is what happens with collective silence. My silence gave Sean Combs the space and time to grow into a more violent criminal. When I started working with Diddy, he and Cassie were in the grooming phase. That is what it was in my eyes. She was 19, he was 36. There were lavish dinners, shopping sprees, etc., all in the guise of creating a new artist. Sean was working her down like men with money do. I was there in Miami when their working relationship turned romantic. During that weekend, I saw Cassie provided copious amounts of substances. I encountered her extremely out of her mind. I offered her food to help bring her down. I witnessed Diddy cursing his assistant, David James, out for not having protection on the yacht. I remember thinking it was crazy and gross. Like, why is he so mad about protection not being on the yacht? It's never that serious. It did stick out in my mind because that's when I knew this was no longer a working relationship. They were both extremely on substances the whole weekend. And really, thereafter. I saw Diddy abuse prescription meds, 420, and other substances. Throughout those early months, it was heavy substance use. I saw him be extremely controlling, and I would say there was an obsessive nature about him. He would go on substance binges, and he wouldn't let any of us sleep, let alone get any breaks. I was working 17 to 21 hours a day, 7 days a week. I worked for almost 2.5 or 3 months straight until I had my first day off. He screamed and cursed at me when he saw me having casual conversation with Cassie. He said I wasn't supposed to be talking to her if it wasn't about food. He also cursed me out when he saw me speaking to guests at one of his parties. He was watching me from across the room. Then he pulled me aside and said that I wasn't supposed to be talking to his friends. He didn't work for all these years for me to come and steal his relationships. What the hell? He said this to the chef? SC would cure me out. Sean Combs would cure me out, or maybe curse me out, if I fed people without his permission. He made me feel like I had to look at the floor and not make eye contact with guests. I'd say like a pimp does to his women. Ooh, ooh, ooh. During this time, in November of 2007, while at the Miami estate, I witnessed Sean Combs get aggressive and borderline violent with the estate manager, Amanda. He was enraged by the fact that Amanda was allowing her house staff to eat. When Diddy questioned her about it, she lied and said she never told me to feed them. Amanda and I actually got into a disagreement about me feeding the staff because I told her I wasn't being paid to do that. I actually called HR to get clarity. They informed me that I was supposed to feed them. One day, Diddy observed the groundkeepers making themselves a plate of food. And even though I said they shouldn't, because he hadn't even eaten himself, of course, as they're making their plates, he comes downstairs. Once he sees this, he immediately starts screaming and cursing out who told them they could eat. I stood there silent. I didn't want to get anyone in trouble. I could tell he was furious. Ultimately, the security told him that Amanda told me I was supposed to feed them. Diddy then called both Amanda and me into the kitchen. He started screaming and cursing at Amanda, saying, "Why is she lying? Why is she telling me to feed her staff?" Ultimately, as he is screaming, he gets up and throws a water bottle across the room and says, "I'm the mother effing king, and you are lying to my face right now." Oh my God, girl. Please no. Please no. Amanda was saying she told me to only provide leftovers to her staff. I told her to just tell the truth. Once he threw the water bottle, I got up and called Dia. Amanda and Dia are in these stories. That's interesting. I used a phone where he couldn't, just names, I used a phone where he couldn't see me. I asked Dia what I should do because I thought he might hit Amanda. I was instructed to get security to separate them, which I did. So she called HR. All while having the phone down on a ledge so Dia could hear everything. Amanda resigned not long after that incident. I believe it fractured their working relationship. Amanda and I never recovered. She blamed me for the incident. But soon after this trip, my hair started falling out. I was having anxiety attacks with heart palpitations. I asked HR if they could rush my benefits through because I needed to see a doctor. I was diagnosed with stress-induced alopecia and extreme anxiety attacks. I was prescribed Zoloft. Throughout this time, I was constantly calling the office, asking for help and begging for off days. When you work 17 to 21 hours a day, you never really rest because your body and mind are still racing when you lay down. And by that time, you have to get up for the next day. HR kept stringing me along, saying they would get me help so I could have days off. I was so young and I just wanted to prove I could do it. So I stayed, thinking at some point things would change, but they never did. In April of 2008, in the Alpine, New Jersey estate, Diddy physically assaulted me. We got into a heated argument and I quit, which enraged him. He kept saying I couldn't effing quit on him. As I was walking out the house, he was following me, screaming, cursing, and berating me. Once the door was open, he used all of his might to push me out of the door. I went flying in the air and ended up on my elbows and butt. There were 2 steps to get up into the house, so it was a pretty hard fall. I called the police, but I hung up. I called HR and told them I was going to sue him. Ultimately, HR told me that I would be blackballed and my career would be over if I sued him. They said that Diddy had the power to blackball me and would end my career when it just started. I chose my career. I stayed silent. I left for a few months, but I was asked to come back. I was assured that this would never happen again, that Diddy would apologize and they would find help so I could get days off. HR said that they would look at budgets for a pay increase. At this time, I was only making $65,000 a year. I wasn't working after I left, so when they called, I went back. Diddy apologized, but none of the other things ever happened. In 2008 or 2009, redacted, Genevieve called the office, and I went to the kitchen phone to call 911. I was told to hang up and that they would send his private doctors over. I was told to leave. The incident was minimized. HR said that he had a reaction to his prescription. Okay, so I guess he had an O to the D type situation is what is sort of being implied by this redaction, but I really don't know. I told HR I knew what an OD was, I think is what she's saying, but I left it alone. Diddy had some of his prescriptions added to my prescription pickups a few times in Miami. Both these incidents were examples of how I assumed rich people do things so that the public doesn't find out their personal business, not understanding that some of this was illegal. In 2009 in LA, I was informed by the security guard Roger Bonds that Diddy brutally beat Cassie. And Roger Bonds thought Diddy was going to unalive Cassie. I was shocked, the chef says, as Bonds detailed the beating. He said that Diddy was punching her in the head and stomping her inside the car. At one point, Cassie ran from the car and was dragged by Diddy through the concrete back into the car. Genevieve, the assistant, was in the car and was trying to break the fight up too. Roger Bonds was concerned about Genevieve and said she was hyperventilating. The security Bonds asked me to check on Genevieve, and when I went to check on her, she acted like she didn't know what I was talking about, so I left it alone and went back to my post in the kitchen. Diddy came screaming and cursing in the kitchen. Chef, why are you in my MFing business? What goes on in my relationship is my MF business. I will effing end you if you tell anyone. I took this as he would unalive me. You better not tell anyone in this office either, which made me realize HR told him I called them about the incident. Up to that point, I didn't know that HR told him about me reporting the Miami incident. I believed then that Sean Combs would unalive me if I told anyone he was beating Cassie, so I remained quiet. A day or two later, his assistant, Genevieve, and I took a bag to Cassie at the London hotel and saw bruises on her face and arms. We never discussed it. We acted like nothing happened. Over the course of my time working with Diddy, I saw hotel rooms be set up with lights, sheets, baby oil, Astroglide. I had always assumed it was just freaky things going on. I never knew the extent. I dare not to ask either. I saw Diddy yell, scream, and berate staff, artists, employees, and girlfriends. He was always mentally and physically abusive. I saw Cassie's bruises on 2 occasions in Miami and LA, but I never questioned it. Diddy weaponized food, sleep, and breaks. We were not allowed breaks. We often snuck in to eat. I would sneak food to feed the staff. I would get cursed out if I asked to go home for the day. I was not allowed to leave for the day unless he said I could. As I type this, my heart breaks for the younger version of myself. I saw Sean Combs create drug-fueled environments for artists, executives, and his girlfriends. I saw the aftermath of the SEX binges in New York City, New Jersey, Miami, LA, and the Hamptons. I believe that the heavy substance use was coercion in order for him to get his way with participants. He was using substances with Cassie on day 1 of their consummation. I'm not sure you could ever be a willing participant under those circumstances. The substance use was far beyond recreational. He was also having an sexual relationship with blank, 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 blank redacted, which to me was an added layer of control, someone in her innermost circle, keeping tabs on her and also keeping secrets from her, weaponizing her most coveted friendship. I'm not sure Cassie ever knew about this betrayal. Who was he having an sexual relationship with? Over the years, I witnessed all of his assistants break down. Wow, that's a powerful sentence. Over the years, I witnessed all of his assistants break down. And they each started abusing substances or alcohol in order. Wow. Every single assistant started abusing drugs and alcohol to get through the workday, or alcohol. David started using substances. Genevieve, I'm not sure. But after the 2009 beating in LA, redacted. She left not long after. I personally would binge drink when I was told off, and smoke 420 to calm my nerves. My therapist would say I was self-medicating with the weed. On March 20th, 2024, the feds showed up at my door in Atlanta, Georgia. I was terrified and I refused to speak to them without a lawyer present. I was served with a grand jury subpoena before they left my home. By April 4th, Sean Combs knew I was contacted by the feds. Okay, so March 20th, the feds show up. By April 4th, he had known, even though I had not testified yet. All caps, this terrified me. By April 11th, Diddy's lawyer, Aaron Dyer, had left a voicemail stating that they knew I was contacted by law enforcement and that Diddy wanted to offer to cover my legal fees. I did not respond. Immediately, I called my lawyers. They instructed me to disregard it. They said they would send out a cease and desist. On April 15th, just 4 days later, Aaron again texted me about the voicemail and stated in the text that they knew I was contacted. and reiterated that Diddy wanted to cover my legal fees. I was extremely terrified because how did he even know I was contacted? Now, I didn't trust him or the government. I didn't know what was going on. I felt like my life was in danger. On April 17th, 18, my Cadillac was broken into. My alarm system was tripped up. All the personal identifying paperwork in my glove compartment was taken out and neatly placed on my passenger seat. All the contents in my middle console, which had a knife and jewelry, all were also laid out. The only thing stolen was my dog bag, and my dog is like my child. I took this as witness tampering, and I was intimidated. In my mind, this was a clear threat. I called the police. I filed a police report. I stated that the feds were at my house 2 weeks prior, and I believed this was intimidation because the person at the center of the case didn't want me talking. I don't have proof that this was Sean Combs' doing, but I firmly believe it was him. He was sending me a message, letting me know how easy it would be to touch me if he wanted to. By this time, I was being asked for months to be part of a documentary about Sean Combs, and I kept declining. I decided after Sean Combs made contact with me through his lawyers that I would do the documentary as a form of protection for myself in case anything more happened to me. I wanted it on record that he assaulted me and that I knew of the brutal 2009 assault on Cassie, which is detailed on page 14 of her lawsuit against him. Diddy never denied that assault. He just threatened to end me to keep me silent. I took that as he would kill me. I accepted that he might have unalived me for my participation in the documentary, and even now I believe he could have. After the 2016 Intercontinental Hotel whatever footage was released, I realized that our collective silence only emboldened Sean Combs. He didn't get help. He didn't stop. He just got worse. The fact of the matter is Sean Combs is an abusive maniac. He doesn't just physically, mentally, and financially abuse and exploit his girlfriends. He does it to his staff as well. He has spent decades abusing almost everyone around him unchecked. So many of us wanted to create our dream careers, and Sean Combs had us living a nightmare. Reliving all of this has been extremely traumatic. Seeing him essentially get off for the most serious offenses is terrifying. This was a miscarriage of justice, in my opinion. For him to now say upon his release he wants to become a domestic violence counselor is truly sick. Him and his legal team should be ashamed of themselves. This PR media tour his legal team was taking just further proves how much Sean Combs believes himself to be above the law, and he has no remorse for the harm he has caused any of us. Cassie said he assaulted her. Mia said he assaulted her. I believe he is a serial R-ist. We were both supposed to testify, but were ultimately removed at the last minute. So there was another person who was going to testify something about assault, and she or he was removed at the last minute. I wonder why. Diddy likes to weaponize. Diddy likes to weaponize fatherhood, his children, and Kim Porter. Ooh, what is redacted? What is redacted? Sean Combs likes to weaponize fatherhood, his children, and Kim Porter, when in reality, he, redacted. Where were his kids while he was being a menace to society all these years? Sean Combs is a billionaire, not a street-level pimp. He chose to use drugs to coerce women into becoming his own personal sex slaves. He used those recorded sexual escapades to hold over their heads, to keep them in check. He used his staff to get drugs to facilitate and cover up crimes. He kidnapped Capricorn Clark at Pew Pew Point. He was going to kill Kid Cudi. These things really happened. It's sick how it's all been minimized. Nothing about what any of us endured was normal. The RICO was there the whole time. Sean Combs got away with it. Instead of being satisfied that he essentially got off, he chooses to let his ego keep driving him. Instead of just being thankful, he and his team have decided to make a mockery out of all of his victims and the judicial system. It is for these reasons I believe Sean Combs should get the maximum sentence available. I don't believe he can ever be rehabilitated. He is a master manipulator. I don't think he should be allowed to live in New York City, New Jersey, LA, or Miami. He should have to relocate to the middle of nowhere. I love her. I love her. He's banished. Don't put Chef Jordan in charge because Diddy would be banished to the middle of nowhere. I don't think he should be allowed to live in New York City, New Jersey, LA, or Miami. He should have to relocate to the middle of nowhere, far away from the places he preyed on and harmed so many people. Not only do I fear for my safety, I fear for all of the witnesses that participated in this case. I know Sean Combs to be a very dangerous and spiteful man with a long memory and a panache for payback. Thank you for your time and consideration. And that would be the end of the letters. Those were very powerful. Shout out to a scroll down Abby Lane becoming a member. Thanks so much, Michelle Nana, for the $5 super chats. Shout out to Kel on Earth, member for 5 months. It should be longer, but somebody stole my card number and I missed a month. Oh no, oh no. Shout out to you, member for 5+ months. Shout out to Cinchi for the 2 Oilo super chat. Thanks for the update. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda, new member. Shout out to me for the $10 Canadian virtual hugs to all. Sometimes that's all we want is a hug and some understanding. We can survive. That is true. Thanks so much for the $10. Thank you, Tara, for the 1 gifted membership. Shout out to Tara. Tell her thank you if you got that membership. Thanks so much. You'll clap when I'm gone. Member for 19 months. Just catching up on the stream. Hope everyone is well. Yeah, I mean, these letters were really, really good. Let me go check the docket just to see if the judge has made a decision on Diddy's motion for a new trial. These letters were very powerful, and I bet that the judge does take them seriously. Now, does that mean he's gonna, side with them and give 20 years or 10 or 11 or whatever? Maybe not, but I think that they will definitely make a point. I'm just seeing right now on the docket if anything's been filed since this. Now, one thing has been filed since this, and I did make a little short about it. The live chat was just not speaking. That's funny. I did make a little short about it. The judge is letting him have non-prison clothes, so he's allowed to wear non-prison clothes. Woohoo. I think they're going to carry some weight. And, I was just kind of like trying to, be respectful with the reading because, at least one of these folks we didn't actually hear from at the trial. She said we were going to, but then, we didn't get called at the last minute. We got took off the list. It was running up on July 4th. Maybe that's what the issue was. I mean, I don't know. I think the jury should have been sequestered. Tara said his lack of humility or learning any kind of lesson was shown by him asking the judge to wear clothes. It does. He is very entitled, and his lawyers are as well. Thank you so much. Always, forever, for life. Your lashes are beautiful. Thanks so much. Got about 4 different mascaras on there. Probably not because after what happened, the people that wrote the letters got serious shame. Danny Masterson's lawyer is representing David Blair Burke, right? Yeah, and seriously, Heather, this is a great point. Everyday person would be spending multiple lifetimes in prison for these offenses. He might get 11 years. It's disgusting. I mean, seriously. I think he did take it a little too far by asking to get out, like, on bail. It does just kind of rub it in the victims' faces and makes it seem like he doesn't really think that what he got convicted of was serious, and he doesn't understand the gravity of his actions, in my opinion. I mean, that's my opinion. So what do we have coming up? What we have coming up is Friday, Diddy's sentencing. Hold on. Friday is Diddy's sentencing hearing. So he will be sentenced on Friday. I'll be going live. I will be live. I don't know what time it is, but there will be announcements before then. So we'll learn together, from reading Inner City Press and other sources, whoever's in there. I'm thinking I'm thinking that it's going to be at least in the 5 years range. After reading those letters, I don't know what the judge is actually allowed to take into consideration, what he will take into consideration. We'll see. They trying to get 11.25. They're saying, they're trying to get 11.25. And now the probation people have said he should get between 5 and basically 8. A little more than 5, a little less than 8. But the feds are like, no, absolutely not. We need a real sentence, please. Thank you. Shout out to Duda. Shout out to the Ganglands and the Neem cousins in the chat. Shouldn't we expect someone else to get arrested in all this? SB said. I thought after this trial, someone like KK would get what's coming. You know what I think they're doing right now, SB, is my opinion. They are trying to get someone. The RICO didn't work, though, right? Because for the fact that the RICO didn't work, it's going to take the wind out of the sails of getting anybody else because it's not a RICO. But they're still bringing RICO. They're still bringing RICO stuff against people out here. They're still bringing RICO, they're still bringing S trafficking stuff against this Howie Rubin guy. He was allegedly abusing these playmates. He might get more than 5. I mean, I'm not a sentencing guidelines expert by any means. Some of y'all are saying, I'm guessing he gets maybe 7.5. That would be at the higher end of what the probation department recommended. So it could be that. It could totally be that. So what else we have coming up? I'm going to probably come on live tomorrow and do a David update. I do have quite a few new updates I didn't get to today because, again, I was working on a David origin story script for BJ Investigates. So the David BJ Investigates coming out. I have a Howard Rubin BJ Investigates coming out. I have a Roblox and 764 Death Cult BJ Investigates coming out. I've been working on them. So tomorrow I'm going to be doing the David updates, and then there's been... Yeah, that'll be Wednesday. And then Thursday, who knows what I'll be doing. And then Friday, we'll have the hearing, the sentencing hearing. So also Tory, I checked, I haven't seen any Tory Lanez updates. I do need to get back to doing my Milagro deposition readings. Everything just popped off all of a sudden right as I was doing that. But I need to get back around to doing that. But I have not seen any news on the Tory Lanez front, but I do kind of feel like something is brewing. One of his lawyers, Diana London, I think is her name, tweeted something the other day, save this tweet. Justice is coming. There will be a day where everyone will see the justice. And I was like, oh girl, what's going on? And I kind of DM'd a couple of the little accounts that follow, everything about Tory. And I'm like, what's up? And they're kind of cryptic. We don't really know either, but it does seem like something. So I don't know what's going on with it, but I will let y'all know on that. And that's all I really had for this one. I'll see y'all in the next one. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation. Neither are opinions. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and Diddy gets non-prison clothes. Love you, Mina. Okay, bye.